The frontman is the new leader of the Squid Games, and he's doing everything he can to beat Song Gi-hun once and for all to ensure that the games last forever. He has the blood of thousands on his hands, and with season 2 that hasn't changed. However, what if I also told you that the creator of Squid Game dropped a huge hint about the future of his character in the final season and how everything will end? Because as season 2 revealed, beneath the mask is a man who understands struggle and pain, someone who once had dreams and hope. But how did he go from somebody who saw the good in everything he did to becoming a man that would happily kill others like it's nothing? Well, that is the mystery we're about to unravel. Because Hwang In-ho is a man cloaked in tragedy. Behind the scenes, the frontman ensures that every challenge is executed with precision, maintaining the twisted sense of fairness that Oh Nam believes in. However, to the frontman, the games are not merely a spectacle of violent entertainment, but an equal second chance to those that the outside world has screwed over. And why? Because that same world screwed him over too. That's right, Hwang In-ho's journey into darkness didn't begin with the games. It began with a life that at one point seemed to hold promise and hope. Once a dedicated South Korean police officer, In-ho was known for his integrity and strong moral compass. He upheld the law with conviction, believing in justice and fairness, setting the example of what being a good guy for the people meant. But the cruel twists of fate had other plans. In-ho's life took a devastating turn when his wife was diagnosed with acute cirrhosis, a condition that worsened rapidly during her high-risk pregnancy. Thus, doctors gave her a choice: terminate the pregnancy to focus on her survival, or risk everything to bring their child into the world. His wife, determined and full of hope, refused to end the pregnancy, believing in the possibility of a miracle. But miracles don't come cheap. Desperate to afford the liver transplant that could save his wife's life, In-ho turned to every possible avenue for financial help. He borrowed from dangerous loan sharks and eventually accepted money that was misinterpreted as a bribe by his superiors at the police office, as it came from a criminal. And so, despite the years of loyal service he gave, In-ho was fired on the spot. The accusations tarnished his reputation as the good guy and stripped him of the stability he once relied on. Adding to his despair was the heartbreaking reality that he could not offer up his own kidney to afford his wife's treatment. This is because years earlier he had donated it to save his younger brother Hwang Jun-ho. That act of love had left him helpless at a time when his wife needed him the most. And so, with nowhere left to turn and time running out, In-ho made the fateful choice to enter the Squid Game as a contestant. The promise of an enormous cash prize was his last hope to save his wife and unborn child. Thus, he became player 132 in the 28th Squid Game, stepping into a world of unimaginable horror and moral compromise. Unsurprisingly, the games pushed In-ho to his physical, emotional, and philosophical limits. He was forced to confront the darkest sides of human nature: greed, betrayal, and the instinct to survive at all costs. Despite these odds though, he emerged as the winner, but victory came too late. By the time he returned, his wife and child were gone. The money he had risked everything for to win was now meaningless. And so a man once driven by love and a sense of duty became disconnected from the world around him. It was the ultimate failure. It was during this time that he was approached by Oh Nam, the host of these games, using his distaste for the world's cruelty to offer In-ho a place within the Squid Game system, a chance to find purpose in a world that had stripped him of everything. With no ties to the outside world remaining, and no hope for redemption, the frontman was born. Or at least, that's what we're led to believe. You see, it's mentioned in season 2 how it's the 5th year anniversary of In-ho's wife's death, but he joined the games in 2015. Thus, she did not die until 2019 at the earliest. He had the money to save her, so I don't know about that one. You tell me. Nonetheless, In-ho embraced his new role with the same dedication he once applied to his work as a police officer, but this time his sense of justice was warped. He became the enforcer of their twisted rules, ensuring fairness at the cost of humanity. The games provided him with the structure and control that the chaos and unpredictability of the world outside couldn't. To In-ho, the outside world was irreplaceable irredeemable, a place where greed and corruption reign, where the weak are trampled by the strong, and where fairness is nothing more than an illusion. The games, in contrast, offer an opportunity for equality. Here, everyone has the same chance to win, regardless of their background or past mistakes. Inho's belief that the games are a better alternative to the chaos of the outside world explains why he remains so loyal to their philosophy, yet beneath the mask, the pain of his past lingered. Inho's journey from a devoted husband and brother, striving to preserve life as much as possible, hoping to fight all odds to even bring a newborn into the world, now saw him as a ruthless killer, playing with the lives of people in the same position he was in years prior, or from the comfort of his surveillance room. Once the first game of the 33rd Squid Games began, he made a call to his superiors informing them that it was ready, before then taking a seat in front of a massive screen, sipping on his whiskey. Even outside of the games, bro has things on lock. In Season 1, when the Squid Game was temporarily halted after the players voted to end it, 93% of the players later returned, with the frontman ordering the guards to keep an eye on the 14 contestants that didn't and to report back on them. However, the frontman's ruthless authority does not adhere to just the player. When a manager had his mask forcibly removed by a desperate contestant who stole his gun, the frontman entered the room and without hesitation shot the manager in the head, all to set a standard to his staff that once someone knows who you are, you're as good as dead to him. But his power isn't just in his violent authority, it's in Inho's ability to manipulate the players. During one of the later nights, the frontman ordered some players to be denied food, setting the stage for a brutal fight amongst them. To heighten the chaos, he directed his workers to flicker the lights, plunging the room into a frenzied hysteria. However, when player 001 cried out in desperation to stop the fight, the frontman immediately intervened, ordering the workers to restore order and save their boss. In spite of this, not all disruptions came from the players, as some of the staff had been secretly working with a contestant who was a doctor, helping them harvest organs under the command of the officer. However, the doctor lashed out at the workers when they revealed they had no info on what the next game would be, which is what he got in return for helping them with the surgeries. In doing so, the doctor killed a guard, whilst another revealed his face to try and quell the situation. Nonetheless, it was all stopped by the frontman, who walks in and shoots everyone present, explaining that whilst he didn't care about their organ smuggling operation, they had compromised the game's fairness by giving the doctor an advantage. This contradicted the core ideals of the Squid Game, as the players had suffered inequality enough outside, let alone inside now as well. Unfortunately for him though, the 33rd Squid Games continued to be a hassle for Inho, as up next was an encounter he never hoped to have, a confrontation with his past that he had abandoned. You see, he was informed of an intruder on the island, and upon investigating the scenes of a worker's death, he removed a bullet from the victim's skull and recognized it as one used by the Korean police. Then in his quarters, he noticed the phone placed differently than usual, confirming his suspicion that a cop was onto them. Thus, both armed and alert, he began his search. As his pursuit unfolded, Inho pieced together the truth. He examined a body found on the island and retrieved the police ID for a Mr. Hwang Jun-ho on the corpse's pocket. However, the frontman knew the body wasn't Jun-ho's, because of course Mr. Hwang Jun-ho was his brother. In spite of this, the games had to go on. Thus, when the VIPs arrived to witness the carnage, the frontman seamlessly transitioned into the role of host. He escorted them to their luxurious viewing quarters, keeping them informed about the players and the games. But his duties were disrupted once again when Jun-ho, still evading capture, surfaced nearby. The frontman tracked him down to an underwater cave and followed with his workers in pursuit, where, cornered on a cliff, Jun-ho had no escape. Face to face with his brother, the frontman gave him a chance to live if he handed over his phone and weapon, knowing that Jun-ho had only one bullet left. Nonetheless, Jun-ho shot the frontman in the shoulder. As the workers raised their weapons, he monitored them to hold fire before taking off his mask, revealing his identity to his stunned brother. He pleaded with Jun-ho to come with him, but his brother refused. Left with no other option, the frontman raised his gun and shot Jun-ho in the shoulder, sending him tumbling off the cliff and into the ocean. But did he really think that was the end of his brother? Well, we know in Season 2 that Jun-ho was saved by a passing fisherman. What's sus about all this though, is that this fisherman is in cahoots with the frontman. Thus, it's entirely plausible that Inho instructed Sea Captain Park to retrieve and save his brother, whilst also ensuring he never returned to the island. But meanwhile, back in his quarters, the frontman tended to his wound in the mirror, haunted by the vision of his brother's face, asking him why. It was a chilling reminder of the guy Inho used to be, a reminder of what he used to believe in, the same kind of ideals that his newest enemy also believes in, the winner of the 33rd Squid Game, Song Song Gi-hun. The frontman shared a car ride with him home, congratulating Gi-hun, offering an unsettling perspective on the game's purpose, comparing the contestants to racehorses, all whilst dismissing Gi-hun's questions about the morality of the games. However, especially following the death of Il-nam, the frontman can't quite shake off the heroism of Gi-hun's beliefs. Before now, he had fully embraced the brutal philosophy of the Squid Games. But what if there was another way? What if Gi-hun is right? Thus, 3 years later, In-ho goes beyond his role as an enforcer to actively test Gi-hun's beliefs in the goodness of humanity. After all, he represents everything In-ho once was, or everything he could never be. Like In-ho, Gi-hun has experienced loss, betrayal, and desperation. But where In-ho succumbs to despair, Gi-hun clings to hope. This contrast highlights the depth of In-ho's internal struggle. His interactions with Gi-hun often feel personal, as if he's not just testing his beliefs, but grappling with his own. In-ho's attempts to challenge and break Gi-hun are a desperate attempt to validate his own choices. If Gi-hun ultimately succumbs to the game's brutal logic, then In-ho's worldview will be proven correct. But if Gi-hun prevails, it would force In-ho to confront the possibility that he was the one who made the wrong choices. Therefore, once he learns that player 456 is re-entering the Squid Games, the frontman decides not just to watch from the sidelines, but to confront him about these uncomfortable truths in person. At first, after catching wind that Gi-hun's plans were to kidnap the frontman, he ends up being the one doing the kidnapping, where Gi-hun then decides to return to the games again, this time to put an end to things from the inside. As a result, In-ho also decides to go in for a round 2 under the name Young-il, taking up the mantle of player 001, proving how defeating the games does nothing. Without the world itself changing, Gi-hun's entire moral endeavor is useless. The frontman's hidden agenda in the games suggests he sees Gi-hun as a mirror of his own past idealism, someone who must be tested and ultimately broken to validate his worldview that humanity is inherently flawed, driven by greed and self-interest. Whilst Gi-hun, on the other hand, holds on to the belief that humanity has the capacity for change and redemption. It's a battle of hope versus despair. Thus, the frontman lets Gi-hun make all the decisions throughout the 36th Squid Game, interested to see where his ideals lead them. And I tell you what, doesn't go well. During the intense and unforgiving games, In-ho quickly integrated himself into a group led by Gi-hun, earning their trust despite some minor slip-ups. For example, he addressed Gi-hun by name, even though he hadn't been told it yet. Nonetheless, his ability to strategize and work with the team helped them form a strong bond, and together they tackled the challenges ahead. They almost looked like friends. In-ho participated in every game, playing his part to ensure his team's success, but he didn't let his true mission pass him by. For example, during the 6th Flags game, he made sure Gi-hun was happy with the role In-ho would play in it. He wanted to be sure that things were going Gi-hun's way, so that in the end he could prove him wrong. Even when it came to throwing the spinning top, In-ho put pressure on Gi-hun by faking how bad he was at the game. You see, the frontman was purposefully using his weak hand to throw it. We know this because he's left-handed, as seen when shooting his brother. It's not until he swaps hands that he then nails it. Nonetheless, he ran down the clock, putting everything onto Gi-hun. And in fact, without In-ho's help, Gi-hun would have lost then and there with the keepy-ups, but it was too soon for In-ho to lose, and so he stretched out a helping hand, or should I say foot, to keep his image in pristine condition amongst his allies. However, during the Mingles game, cracks in his facade finally began to show. Jung-bae, another member of the group and Gi-hun's best friend, witnessed a horror. Suddenly, something began to seem off about In-ho. First was his uncanny ability to predict the number of players required for each room. Was it really quick maths, or was it the fact that the frontman planned these games beforehand? Regardless, Jung-bae's suspicions grew even more when he later witnessed In-ho killing a man in cold blood to ensure his own survival, leaving Jung-bae deeply disturbed, planting seeds of doubt about In-ho's true nature. Then, as tensions within the games escalated, chaos erupted in the dormitory. A fight broke out amongst the players, each hoping to increase the prize money by eliminating others. However, this was also planned by In-ho. It was the ultimate test for Gi-hun. You see, in Korea, you don't eat rice rolls with a fork, yet a fork was given to all the contestants. The frontman planned for a bloodbath to begin, and whilst Gi-hun helped his team ensure survival, In-ho knew he had won their battle of beliefs. You see, in the aftermath of the brawl, Gi-hun orchestrated a bold plan to revolt against the guards, seizing their weapons in a desperate bid for freedom. But in doing so, Gi-hun claimed that a small sacrifice was needed to succeed. Thus, In-ho's ideals had been seemingly proven to be correct, and so he joined the uprising alongside Gi-hun and Jung-bae, fighting fearlessly to survive and protect their group. However, the time finally came for him to complete his mission. When Gi-hun went to search for the control room, In-ho asked if he wanted him to go with. Gi-hun rejected it, taking his best friend Jung-bae instead, ultimately sealing his fate and loss. Because when In-ho went to provide backup later on during an intense shootout, he used his pre-established knowledge of the layout to sneak behind the guards. However, he then killed the man with him, before then faking his own death on the walkie-talkie to Gi-hun, keeping his true identity hidden. From there, he dismissed his role as a player and reclaimed his identity as the frontman. That's when he confronted Gi-hun in person, showing how him playing the hero failed, ultimately shooting Jung-bae in the head right in front of him. But what is next for the frontman? Well, the creator of Squid Game likened him to Darth Vader, and how Gi-hun was on a similar path and had to choose between walking the Jedi path or the Sith. But considering the voice changer and the all-black costume with the mask, the Darth Vader inspiration for the frontman is hardly subtle, let alone asking his relative to join him on the dark side before they then drop into the deep depths of apparent death. Thus, I think it's very likely that in the end, In-ho will believe in Gi-hun's philosophy and sacrifice himself, killing the VIPs and putting an end to the Squid Games himself to save Gi-hun. But let me know what you think of all that in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, ding that notification bell, and whilst you're at it, check out this video on your screen right now.
I have gathered all the evidence and insane details that explain what will happen in Squid Game Season 3, including proof that Gi-hun could die and the frontman actually being a good person. But let's start off with the new games. We know there will be one with climbing. In the dormitory, there are figures on the walls representing potential new games. One of them displays people on monkey bars climbing. This could easily translate into a deadly competition where players must travel at great height, paralleling Season 1 with the final game being a glass bridge. If someone falls, they die, and if they don't finish before the timer runs out, they get the same fate. Another game featured in the post-credit scene includes a train track and its traffic sign. The new doll is named Chol-soo, who is paired with Young-hee in South Korean education material. The next game could link the traditional Korean Dong-dong game, where players have to respond to rhythmic commands that alternate between go and stop. Now, whilst the song is playing, they have to go around the train track, where it's made with two opposite people holding hands. But in this case, it would be Chol-soo and Young-hee. The game goes something like this. And in essence, they have to get to the other side whilst holding on to their team members. But it's all about trust, as the other person in front of you might cause you to lose. However, another game pattern on the wall is chess or checkers, since it has to be children games. This means players participate in a real-life human chess game, where advancing to take out the pieces would result in a player's death. There would be 32 or 24 players left, the same number as the number of pieces in chess and checkers. One person from each group would pick a leader to control how the game goes, and Gi-hun, being player 456, will be one of them. This would fit into the story, as he told the frontman in episode 7 that smaller sacrifices are necessary for the greater good, which means Gi-hun would literally have to do so in the game, imposing the frontman's view on the world onto him once again. This would fit the story of Season 3 perfectly, with two factions already forming, one side to keep the games going and the other wanting to leave. It's like a metaphor of Gi-hun facing off against the front man, yin and yang, black and white, facing off against each other in their clashing ideology. Now, when we look at the marketing of Season 3, it even foreshadows that. Gi-hun is wearing a black suit just like in the games, whilst the front man is wearing white. But interestingly, Gi-hun's failure in Season 2 will be explored further in the next season through the shaman player 44. Everyone is confused regarding the purpose of her character and found her annoying, but there is important details to be noted. From her very first appearance, she displayed an uncanny ability to identify Ji-hun's internal struggle. She saw right through him, recognizing that he's haunted by the games and the vengeful souls of the dead, essentially a metaphor for his survivor's guilt, which is also his primary motivator for re-entering the Squid Games to get revenge for them. However, her dialogue foreshadows events in season 3. She states, "I should slay you with my knife." This line is spoken when she joins Player 120's team during the 6-leg race. Interestingly, while saying this, she looks towards the mother-son duo. But here's where it gets intriguing. We know Granny has a hairpin knife, and the betrayal she felt in Mingle has started a feud where she claims to have cursed Ji-hoon and the gang. Now, let's take this deeper. Remember when Player 44 said this to Ji-hoon?
"You've lived longer than you were ever meant to. You're here for a reason. You were drawn by destiny."
Notice how she states this whilst glancing at the pregnant contestant, Player 222. This means Ji-hoon and the pregnant girl's future are intertwined, as she will give birth during the games, and Player 222's survival is key to Ji-hoon's character development, as it will prove there is hope in this messed up world, which will affect the frontman wavering his persona into his old good self. Let's remember that the frontman's wife died whilst pregnant. This loss caused great pain, but he is shown to be concerned regarding the pregnant player because she reminds him of his wife. This is linked to the scene against Thanos. He was enraged and beat him to a pulp only when he mentioned, "Take care of your own damn kids."
밖에 나가서 함부로 나불대지 말고.
But this pregnant storyline will come with sacrifices, as the shaman also claims during the Mingle game, you will be joining her in the underworld soon. This feels like a clear death flag for Player 120, as she later states the following.
"니들도 절대로 살아서는 여길 못 나가. 끔찍한 고통 속에서 죽게 될 거야. 서로 많이 쳐다보면서."
This curse is also aimed at the mother's son. The old lady will be a midwife to help with the pregnancy since she's experienced. But Player 44's claim, "If you give up, I will kill you before your gods do," sets the tone of this crazy character, especially since Korean shamanism is an indigenous spiritual tradition that has existed in Korea since ancient times. And although very few Koreans practice it today, the creator of Squid Game has added this character on purpose, as many view shamans as fortune tellers and consult one for serious issues. What's more serious than the Squid Game? But speaking of serious issues, let's talk about God 11 and Player 246. Season 2 made it seem like Player 246 was killed, right? But the evidence discovered shows it's clear that he survived. The guard who shot him wore a triangle mask, similar to the North Korean woman. This woman sympathized with 246 after meeting his young daughter and was also involved in the organ trafficking plot. She even visits the hospital and enters the girl's room to hold her hand and leave the hat before exiting. This implies she only injured him to fake his death, planning to save 246 during the organ harvesting operation in season 3. The coffin will be used to secretly transport him. After all, Guard 11 had a meeting with the officer to not fatally shoot the contestants, which means she would only be following orders after the multiple warnings she received. However, interestingly, the meaning of her name also holds significance. Remember Kang Seobyok from season 1? Well, both these characters are from North Korea. Their family name is Kang, and No Ul means sunset. Seobyok means dawn. And when we take a look at the official poster for season 3, it features just that. Both women's histories show that they are North Korean defectors attempting to bring their families to South Korea. Seobyok had an older brother that died from a plague. This could mean God 11 is her sister-in-law, who took on the Kang surname, and the baby she is looking for is first cousins with Kang Cheol. Ji-hoon monitored him in season 2 to see how he's doing, as Sang-woo's mother has adopted him. However, speaking of looking for a kid, the frontman's backstory has to be revealed in season 3. In the finale, Ji-hoon thinks Player 1 is dead thanks to the radio transmission. He will be put back into the games because it's written in the contract, and the creator of Squid Game confirmed that you will get to see the VIPs in the 3rd season. They're on their way already. Their chopper is flying over the island right now. In fact, it's also confirmed one of the VIPs is American and will lead to a spin-off season based on other countries, since Squid Game is across the entire globe. But in the teaser, we see a glimpse of a game with players 353, 96 and 100 walking towards the doll. A lot of fans speculate this is a flashback to 2015 when the frontman participated, because we have already seen player 100 being an old man with greyish hair. But this can be debunked, because double checking the numbers throughout season 2, we clearly know these numbers are still alive. None of them have been eliminated. Plus, we see the train traffic sign on the right hand side, and the frontman was player 132 in the 2015 Squid Game when his brother found the records in season 1. So in truth, season 3 will logically explain a gap in the story regarding him. A small detail in season 2 that everyone seems to miss is that it's the 5th year anniversary of In-ho's wife's death, but he won the games in 2015. Thus, she did not die until 2018 at the earliest. That means the frontman had the money to save her. So why exactly did Jun-ho find that he lived in a cheap dormitory and struggled to pay off his rent on time in season 1? How come he didn't spend the money he wanted to save her? Well, this is where the confirmed juicy details of season 3 come in. Just like Ji-hun, the frontman felt too guilty to use the money he had won and was a man with morals just as idealistic as Ji-hun. The creator of Squid Game revealed that whilst writing the frontman's character, he purposely showcased a good side to him that actually enjoys Ji-hun's company. He revealed that Hwang In-ho in episode 6 of season 2, we witness a pivotal moment that encapsulates the complexity of the frontman, showcasing his 3 distinct personas that trouble his mind. During the game of Mingle, players must form groups of a specific number and lock themselves in a room together. In a round requiring exactly 2 numbers, the frontman without hesitation or a blink of an eye kills someone to meet the requirement. The 3 personas the creator of Squid Game confirmed in this scene are the following. Number 1, In-ho, the righteous cop he once was, representing his past. Number 2, Young-il, the player who participates in the games, symbolizing his survival instinct. Number 3, the frontman, the cold, calculating leader who would do anything to maintain control. However, the writer of Squid Game confirmed Ji-hun's unwavering hope and compassion begins to affect the front man. The creator stated that Ji-hun's optimism rubs off on him, and at some point you can feel he's actually enjoying himself in the game and he's excited and nervous. This means whilst he went back to the game wanting to change the way Ji-hun viewed the world, on some level, subconsciously, he looks at Ji-hun, who refuses to let go of the hope that he carries for humanity. And that reminds In-ho of himself, the person of the past that he was. The creator of Squid Game stated that Ji-hun's compassion is so contagious that there's a very small part of In-ho that is actually rooting for him along the way. However, his frontman persona is too strong. As a result, in season 3, his brother Jun-ho will be able to track the island and rescue the remaining players by getting information from the boat captain once they discover he is a spy who sabotaged the drone. At the end of the day, Jun-ho is the frontman's weak spot. As we know from season 1, he told his brother to join him and did not want to shoot, and he didn't even kill him. Where it's confirmed that in season 3, we will finally learn how In-ho got into the position he's in. A popular theory is that the frontman shared a similar goal with Ji-hun, stopping the deadly games as a police officer in 2015, which means he can team up with Ji-hun in a plan to take down the VIPs. They can detonate bombs hidden on the island whilst the VIPs are present, killing them in the process whilst he sacrifices himself in repentance. This could mean that the frontman discovered that as long as there are rich people seeking twisted entertainment and desperate players willing to participate, the games can never truly be stopped. Instead, he chose to become the frontman to ensure the games were at least fair and not manipulated, hoping for a way to stop it. Ji-hun, on the other hand, might be headed down a similar path. Whilst he has the determination to fight the system, there's an possibility that he could become the next front man. The two characters seem destined to mirror each other in many ways. Just like In-ho was fired by the police for this so-called bribe, Ji-hoon will face accusations of betrayal when he returns to the lobby, since he receives special treatment during the games whilst his closest allies died due to his stupid plan. A clue supporting the theory of Ji-hoon becoming the front man comes from a moment on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Both buttons were pressed when he was asked if Ji-hoon becomes that very person, implying that his fate could ultimately lead to his death. Now, to learn more hidden details about Squid Game that will blow your mind, watch this video on your screen right now. Today I'm going to give you insane details I found in Squid Game Season 2. Let's begin with player number 1, the frontman, whose actions have subtle details and hidden motives that you might have missed. Player 1 was messing with Ji-hoon from the start, with subtle callbacks to things Ji-hoon experienced in Season 1, purposely playing with his mind. Like, did you notice how number 1 styled his hair in a way that's oddly similar to Sang-woo? Almost like he's deliberately making himself look like someone Ji-hoon would have a strong reaction to. But the milk scene is also telling. In Season 1, Ji-hoon gives his milk to Ali, saying he can't drink plain milk. Well, fast forward to Season 2, and guess what? Player 1 does the exact same thing. He hands over his milk to Jun-hee, saying he can't drink plain milk either. Like, the frontman is so meticulous that he changed the Squid Game number on the cards to 456, which was the number of Ji-hoon. In fact, the phone number from Season 1 actually belonged to a real Korean woman who was bombarded with phone calls and messages. Netflix have even gone back to re-edit the scenes in Season 1 to a different number because she was being harassed. Now, when we take a look at the second game, the frontman's initial failure with his right hand to spin the topper, followed by the success with his left hand in the end, that's no coincidence. He's left-handed established in Season 1, like when he shot his brother with a gun precisely in the shoulder so that he would not die. The truth is, Hwang In-ho intentionally prolonged the game. This tactic was likely designed to unsettle Ji-hoon and diminish his group's advantage. This hints at the frontman's deeper psychological strategy to gain their trust by the end when he helped win the final game. However, the arrangements of groups, particularly placing Ji-hoon's team last in the Six Flags game, that's intentional. This setup ensured that if player number 1, the frontman in disguise, was compromised, the elimination of the entire group would protect his identity, showcasing the meticulous control he had over the game's dynamics. Although this led to his frustration during the spinner game when he struggled to succeed, because if he failed, the potential necessity to eliminate Ji-hoon prematurely would disrupt his broader plan to prove by episode 7 that the choice he made to play the hero was a failure. Because another small detail is the frontman's smirk in response to Ji-hoon's assertion about necessary sacrifices for the greater good, which inadvertently validated the frontman's cynical worldview, setting up the stage for Season 3. And another small detail is that he addresses Ji-hoon by name without any prior introduction, offering a flimsy excuse when he was questioned about it, just like the several other subtle behaviors that reveal his true identity, like his remark to Ji-hoon when he says, "It's not like you killed anyone," which only implies that he has knowledge he shouldn't possess. Why would he assume this regarding Ji-hoon? And during a conversation, player number 1 points out the meaning behind their numbers, stating, "My name means 1 and I'm number 1. Yours means last name and you're 456. Where he starts laughing, not reading the room properly, poking fun at the sheer coincidence. Like, even his exceptional combat skills against Thanos should have demonstrated a background in law enforcement or the military, yet Ji-hoon seemed to overlook all of this. Another detail regarding him is during the Mingle game. He might have cheated when he was separated from the rest of the group. We never see what group he joins, and when they reunite, he comes back stating, "When you're charismatic like me, me, this game is easy, which hints that he avoided participation, possibly hiding to ensure his survival, reflecting his willingness to bend rules to maintain his cover. And in that same game, the frontman's prediction about the group sizes, that there would be 6 and 2 players in the last 2 rounds, that was a huge giveaway. Another insane detail that is called back upon in season 2 that you may not have noticed is that he claims to Sung Ji-hoon after he won the games in season 1 the following.
경마 좋아하시죠? 당신들은 말입니다. 경마장의 말. 의외였어요. 당신은 얼마 달리지 못할 줄 알았는데.
However, in season 2, we see the dudes literally wearing a horse mask when entering the club, implying nothing has changed. They are still gamblers and within his grasp. This is illustrated with yet another small insane detail regarding the food that proves it. Now in Korea, rice rolls are never eaten with a fork. You either use your hands or traditional wooden chopsticks. But in Squid Game, the players were served rice rolls with a fork. Why? That wasn't random at all, it was deliberate. All these items were potential weapons. The management was handing them tools to fight each other. This mirrors what happened in season 1. Remember when Ji-hoon was served steak? They got metal knives. That means the front man wanted the players to start eliminating each other. However, given the fact that Il-nam was number 1 and behind all the games, it's crazy how naive Ji-hoon acted in this season, not picking up on any of these clues that number 1 can be a traitor just like before. But next up is the fisherman, who has an insane amount of details that interlinks with the front man. In Squid Game season 2, the fisherman seems helpful, but is actually working against the main characters. Let's break down the clues that reveal his true intentions. In one scene, the investigator mentioned a lead, and the fisherman quickly asks, is it the guy who won it before? The investigator responds, oh, did Jun-ho tell you that? This suggests the fisherman knew more than he should, hinting at his deeper involvement. And throughout season 2, the fisherman acts clueless about technology, like pretending not to understand how a drone works or even say it properly. But this was just him planting the seeds of doubt in their heads for later on when they discover the drone has been sabotaged. How could it be the fisherman if he doesn't know how it works? Like, even the fisherman saving the policeman is questionable, as the officer literally states there are hundreds of islands, but he just so happened to be at the right place at the right time to save his life. So it's obvious he's working for the front man to save his brother, because at the end of the day he still loves him and wants him by his side, just like he mentioned in season 1. Furthermore, the fisherman prevented the task force progression to find the island multiple times. He deliberately steers them away from the actual island where the games occur. This is by planting the tracker in the bay and setting a trap explosion. He's been the mole this whole time for the past 2 years, being funded with money. Why else would he be helping this policeman for free? Where he even mentions he's not even being paid, but just so happened to find this random guy with a random insane story, so he feels obligated to take him to hundreds of different islands for free. But in truth, none of this would be possible without the front man helping out the fisherman in exchange for preventing them and gaining intel or money. And speaking of money, there's another small detail regarding the salesman. When the salesman hands a coin to a homeless man, we get a close-up of his hands, revealing calluses. At first glance, this could be from weightlifting, but let's be real, it's probably from slapping recruits and proving his philosophy day after day, because he's in it for the love of the game. He doesn't even have to do that, but he does that to the homeless just to prove them wrong. Now the detail is subtle, but it's linked to the Matrix reference the front man makes as well. The iconic red and blue pills from the Matrix are mentioned, and this ties into Ji-hoon's internal struggle. He's still stuck in his gambler mindset, unwilling to truly live his life with his daughter and the money. The Russian roulette game with the salesman further proves this point, emphasizing how Ji-hoon isn't much different from the beggars in the pot. Whilst offering the option between food or a lottery ticket, a majority gambled for money rather than stopping their hunger. This reaffirmed his beliefs that certain people in the world are trash. They consistently choose risky, uncertain options over safer, more guaranteed outcomes. Ji-hoon proved his point by taking the 50-50 to die to let fate decide if he lives, rather than killing the salesman with the last bullet and guaranteeing the outcome so he can take the invitation out of his pocket. This proves that Ji-hoon not living a happy life with his daughter is just a choice. Just like in The Matrix, he is still a gambler willing to make sacrifices, like he admitted by episode 7 to the front man. And regarding the salesman, have you noticed how the Kote animation is way too similar to his caricature in the series? This feels like a nod to meme culture, showing how the creator of Squid Game is definitely locked in. Unlike the people who invested in 333's MG coin, as that's a nod to the Do Kwon crypto scandal, where people lost everything and some even took their lives. He faced legal action after the 2022 collapse of Terra USD and Luna cryptocurrencies. It's a reminder of how greed and exploitation ruin lives. But now, here's one of the best details in season 2. It's a moment you probably missed if you watched in the English dub in episode 5. Thanos and his group are casually discussing their ages. For those who don't know, age is a big deal in Korean culture. It influences relationships, respect, and even how you address someone. So after a bit of back and forth, they figure out that the girl in the group is the eldest. That's when Thanos pushes the guy in the group to call her Nuna, which is the term younger men use for older women. But here's where the scene gets even better. Right after this playful interaction, the show cuts to player 120, Hyun-ju, the transgender woman, being called Onni by another girl in her team. Onni is what younger women call older women in Korean, and you can actually see how flustered Hyun-ju gets when she hears it as someone has acknowledged her identity. Then there's the moment when the girl tells Hyun-ju, Onni, you're beautiful, where Hyun-ju brushes it off, talking about how beautiful girls in Thailand are and how she'll be too. But then the girl insists, Onni, you are beautiful. It's heartbreaking because you realize she feels conflicted. Hyun-ju knows she voted to continue the game when the girl wanted to stop. She's probably used to people not respecting her identity. But here's this random girl not only using an endearing term calling her Onni, but treating her with kindness. This connection gets even more emotional when you realize Hyun-ju got attached but witnessed her death in Mingle. Player 120 is similar to Staff Sergeant Byung-hyo Soo. Sorry if I mispronounced it. But in this real life story, it's regarding a transgender soldier in Korea who was discharged after transitioning. Despite fighting for her rights, she was denied and tragically took her life. But that's not all. This moment parallels Sang-woo and Ali's relationship in season 1. Remember how Ali started by calling Sang-woo Sa-jang-nim, which means boss or CEO or president? But Sang-woo told him to stop. Ali then called him Hyung, which means older brother, as a sign of respect and closeness. But in the end, as a parallel, both Ali and Young-mi had their last words in the show be Hyung and Onni, terms they use for people they grew attached to. Now, to enjoy more Squid Game videos and to learn even more lore of things you have missed, watch this video on your screen right now.
Behind the tens of thousands of lives the Squid Games have taken lies a hierarchy of humans far more evil than you can imagine. Every year since 1988, a new competition has begun, each more deadly than the last. However, to ensure that the Squid Game system stays rigid, secure, and horrific, an incredibly precise hierarchy has been put into place, which is just as sick and twisted as the games themselves. Starting with the salesman. He is the very first layer of the Squid Game rank system, and he's the one who starts the chain reaction that leads people into this evil competition. You see, he's not just a recruiter, he's the gatekeeper, the one who identifies and selects the players who will participate in the games, and that is what makes him dangerous. Imagine this, you're in a subway station, exhausted, broken, feeling like life is just beating down upon you. Then out of nowhere, a cheerful man in a suit approaches you. Then he offers you a chance to play a simple game of dakji. If you win, you get money, and if you lose, you get slapped. It may seem harmless, but it's the most dangerous and life-changing game you will ever play. You see, the salesman isn't just testing your skills, he's testing your desperation. His entire role in the Squid Game's hierarchy is finding finding people at their lowest point, those willing to endure humiliation or pain for a chance at a better life. The slap that comes with the loss represents the slap in the face the rich and powerful give to those beneath them through corporate greed and exploitation. Then when the player finally wins and gets the money, it comes with a business card. There's no detailed explanation, just a phone number and a promise of even more rewards if you're willing to take the risk. And that is the genius of the salesman's role. He doesn't force anyone to join. He lets their desperation and curiosity do the work, cruelly justifying the Squid Game's existence by declaring it a fair and equal opportunity for all. But we all know this isn't the truth. After all, the salesman isn't just a recruiter, he's a manipulator. He exploits people's vulnerabilities and uses them to pull them into a system even more deadly than the one he's offering them an escape from. In fact, he's a reflection of that system, how the most vulnerable are the ones exploited for profit or entertainment. And so whilst he's not the top of the hierarchy, he is still one of the most important. And whilst he is incredibly responsible for the death of thousands, his hands are clean, or at least in his mind, because once he's recruited you, he's gone, leaving players to face the consequences of their decisions. However, if you do track him down, which is not easy as Gi-hun spent over 2 years trying to do so, he will fight back. Then when he's captured, those trying to follow him will essentially get thrown into a mini Squid Game. Squid Games on the go, you could say. All the fun and excitement of the normal games, anywhere in the world. In fact, even in his spare time, the salesman likes to gamble with the livelihoods of those less fortunate. That's right, he's in it all for the love of the game. As bro would even go to local parks and ask homeless people to choose between bread or a lottery ticket. Then, if they lose, he would destroy the bread that they refused in front of them, claiming they chose to destroy the perfectly fine bread themselves. But even that is nothing compared to his little game of rock, paper, scissors -1 combined with Russian roulette. But because he's such a preacher of fairness, it was only fair that the salesman got a taste of his own medicine. After interrogating the winner of Russian roulette about who hired them, the salesman confronted Gi-hun alone, once again playing Russian roulette. In spite of his cocky attitude though, he lost. His luck had run out. But not before revealing the truth before how he got into his position. Because you see, the salesman isn't actually the lowest rank there is. In fact, it's actually a really high one. He has direct contact with their master, all because of the salesman's former rank. He was originally one of the pink guards, where upon realizing he had to kill his dad, who was a Squid Game participant, he had what it took to send people to their deaths and be promoted to the salesman. And I mean, just look at this guy. He is not normal. But talking of the guards, aka pink soldiers, this faction of the staff is subsequently split into 3 tiers of ranking, starting with the lowest. These are the pink workers, symbolized by the O on their masks. They are the unseen hands that keep the Squid Games running smoothly, tasked with dull but essential jobs that ensure there are no interruptions. Essentially, the pink workers are the civilians of the guard hierarchy. Their duties evolve around assisting with game operations, performing general upkeep, and handling the cleanup. They transport the bodies of deceased contestants, cremate them, and distribute food to the players. Without them, the games would quickly descend into chaos. But despite the physical demands of their work and its importance, the pink workers live under the same rigid structure as the rest of the guards. They cannot speak without permission from a higher ranking manager, and they must remain at their designated posts unless instructed otherwise. They have no access to firearms and no decision-making power. Furthermore, their mask must be worn at all times outside of their dorm, and they cannot leave. The dehumanizing nature of their role is reflected in how they are treated. They are not allowed to show empathy or favoritism towards the players, no matter what messed up shit they've got to witness. This rule strips them of their individuality and moral agency, turning them into mere tools of the Squid Game hierarchy. Thus, like the contestants that they cremate, they too are trapped within a system that values obedience and monotony above all else. They are just as bound by the rules as the players, unable to deviate from their assigned tasks without risking punishment or death. As a result, whilst looking like they may seem like faceless enforcers of the system, they're also victims of it. By hiding their faces and stripping away their voices, the organization ensures that they are seen only as a part of the machinery of the games. Their individuality is quite literally erased, making it easier for the organization and even the workers themselves to justify their participation in such a brutal system, as seen with 2 corrupt workers who broke the rules and co-conspired with player 111, a former doctor who who wanted to dissect and sell the organs of deceased players on the black market. In fact, this organ harvesting operation continued into Season 2, where we see some of the pink soldiers purposely keeping contestants alive during the games. They rank above the workers and are symbolized by a triangle on their masks. They are the armed and authoritative enforcers of the Squid Game's brutal rules, tasked with maintaining the integrity of the games through force and fear. This is the difference between them and the workers, because whilst their rigid hierarchy and anonymity mirror each other, the soldiers are defined by the power they wield and the violence they are instructed to inflict to ensure the Squid Games retain their deadly composure. As a result, the soldiers are equipped with submachine guns and revolvers to ensure that eliminated players, whether through failing the games or breaking the rules, are swiftly and definitively dealt with. A rule that Number 11 tries her best to uphold, actively fighting back against the corrupt soldiers keeping contestants alive for their organs. This is because she was given the task of putting the lives of the miserable contestants out of their misery. That is what the pink guards are told they are doing on the island. Along with taking away lives though, they're also instructed to play a special game when fighting breaks out amongst the contestants to quell the chaos. However, another reason they stepped in to stop the fights during Season 1 and 2 is to also protect their respective superiors, players 001, aka the host and the frontman. Nonetheless, their role as both the muscle and the protectors of the Squid Games is most notable when they are actively involved in the search and capture of Hwang Jun-ho, the undercover police officer infiltrating the games looking for his brother. But at the top of the pink guards food chain are the managers. Symbolized by a square on their masks, they are the organizational backbone of the Squid Game. Acting as the frontman's trusted ground leaders, they oversee the pink soldiers and workers, ensuring the smooth and efficient operation of the games. Whilst they wield less firepower than the soldiers, their authority within the hierarchy is the highest, and thus most dangerous. Armed only with a revolver, the managers rely more on their commanding presence and strategic role than brute force, acting as intermediaries between the frontman and the lower ranks, executing his directives and maintaining order amongst the guards. As a result, managers possess a level of autonomy not granted to the other guards. Unlike soldiers or workers, they can speak more freely, relaying rules, announcing schedules, and overseeing interactions between the staff and contestants. Outside of the games themselves though, their duties include monitoring operations from control centers behind the scenes to ensure that every action, from the player's movement to the guard's compliance, is observed, followed, and evaluated. For example, one manager in particular was in charge of the workers during the Sugar Honeycomb game. He noticed that player 29 wasn't doing his job and told him to meet with him after the game, but player 119, who failed, subsequently stabbed a guard in the eye before then taking the manager at gunpoint, forcing him to take off his mask. When player 119 saw how young the manager really was, he chose to end his own life. However, the damage was already done for the young man, as once the manager's face had been revealed, the frontman arrived and executed him for breaking the rules. After all, he is the second highest ranking member of the hierarchy, dictating authority over those beneath him. As the overseer, the frontman, aka Hwang In-ho, monitors the games through an array of surveillance cameras watching every move. However, he's actually a former winner of the games himself. You see, his wife was diagnosed with a rare illness which got so bad that she needed a liver transplant. However, whilst they were figuring out the treatment, it was discovered that his wife was also pregnant. Doctors recommended terminating the pregnancy, but she didn't listen. Regardless of the danger, she was determined to give birth. But unfortunately, Hwang In-ho and their family couldn't find an organ donor nor the money whilst her conditions got worse, even after loaning a ton of cash, as In-ho had already donated his kidney to his stepbrother years prior. However, he eventually accepted a loan from the wrong person, which his superiors at the police force saw as a cash bribe, causing Hwang In-ho to lose his job, eventually seeing him sent into the Squid Games as a last-ditch desperate attempt at money. In spite of this, he saw the beauty of the games. He believed in the vision Nam was creating. He believed that until the world had decided to change for good, the Squid Games was a necessary evil. Hence why he took on such a high-ranking position. But in Season 2, he threw all of that away. Much like how Nam did, once the frontman had learned of Ji-hun's return to the game, he decides to participate, taking up the mantle of player 001. He uses the name Young Il for cover, also that he can get close and personal with Gi-hun and Tae, testing. It becomes the biggest battle of the entire series, and it's all about ideological warfare. Because the frontman has seen the worst of society, he has no hope in humanity, whereas Gi-hun is the opposite. Despite re-entering the games and being surrounded by what society deems as scum, he has hope that together they will escape alive. During his time spent in the games though, a substitute frontman was required, and this is a new position to Season 2 known as the Officer. Wearing an inverted pink guard's jumpsuit, this is another powerful position, but also the most corrupt. This officer is actually the source of the organ harvesting taking place within the games. Like the frontman, his power is high, as seen when he was able to stop Number 11 in her attempts to halt his illegal organ operations. The result for this power though is actually linked to their past together. That's because the officer met with Number 11 7 years prior in hospital when she was weak and vulnerable after fleeing North Korea. He hired her as a guard as he felt sorry for Number 11. Thus, in a way, he's almost a combination of the frontman and the salesman when it comes to the pink guards, as he not only manipulates and preys on the unfortunate, but also offers them the promise of a way out of their circumstances. In this case, by exploiting Number 11's desire to do anything to find her 1-year-old child she left behind in North Korea. Possibly the most grotesque and dehumanizing layer of the Squid Game's hierarchy though are the VIPs. They are the spectators, the elite, and the finances of the deadly games, coming in from all over the world. Unlike the pink soldiers or even the frontman, who are still bound by the rules of the system, the VIPs exist entirely above it. They are untouchable, and their presence reveals the true purpose of the games. Not a fair second chance for the poor, but rather entertainment for the wealthy. This is not so subtly symbolized by what is technically the lowest rank of all, the human furniture. This is exactly how it sounds. Humans, stripped of any humanity, turned into objects. Slightly above them are the masked waiters. Again, how it sounds. No sense of personality, merely monotonous slaves to do as the VIPs desire without question. But to capture the VIPs' sense of authority and power, they are draped in luxurious robes and wear animal-themed masks. Their masks symbolize their detachment from reality and humanity, but unlike all other workers, still have their own unique design to show that they are more than just a nameless pawn of the system. Because to them, the games are nothing more than a spectacle, a form of high-stakes gambling where they bet on human lives as casually as someone might bet on horse racing. They cheer when someone dies, marvel at the creativity of the challenges, and laugh at the suffering of others. For them, the games are not about
camino en la esquina, mente tan perdida, calle llena de sombras, vida tan ardida, en el barrio siempre fuego, más allá del cielo, estrellas nos olvidan, se nos va el anhelo, parches en la chaqueta, historia escrita, ritmo en las venas, no hay visita de dioses ni santos en esta pista, solo el grito del alma en cada vista, el calor del barrio nunca se apaga, sueños que persigo, nadie me amaga, pasos en la sangre, ritmo en mi pecho, en cada latido, el barrio satisfecho, el calor del barrio nunca se apaga, sueños que persigo, nadie me amaga, pasos en la sangre, ritmo en mi pecho, en cada latido, el barrio satisfecho, cicatrices en la piel, recuerdos tatuados, llantos y risas, siempre mezclados, música en las paredes, eco de antaño, cada arribo un testigo de todo el daño, gorras y gafas, estilo invencible, historia de rebeldes, alma irrompible, papel y pluma, testigos de gloria, cada verso un capítulo de mi historia, el calor del barrio nunca se apaga, sueños que persigo, nadie me amaga, pasos en la sangre, ritmo en mi pecho, en cada latido, el barrio satisfecho, el calor del barrio nunca se apaga, sueños que persigo, nadie me amaga, pasos en la sangre, ritmo en mi pecho, en cada latido, el barrio satisfecho.
The chaos, playing as a contestant to experience the stakes firsthand. However, 36 years after creating the Squid Games, following a huge financial crisis that hit the country, Lil Nam's death may feel like a small victory, but it doesn't undo all the damage that he caused. Even in his final moments,